Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Josh,
And I'm Drew.
and this is our pull list review episode for July 29th. That's not July, is it?
Yeah.
All right, July 29th. This week we're going to talk about a few different titles here, and we're going to start out with Daredevil, number 17. This is by Wade and Samney with art by Wilson. So give us the rundown real quick on Daredevil.
I thought this was going to be the last issue of the series. It's actually not. It's the penultimate issue of the series. Matt continues in his efforts to try to save everyone to the best of his ability, but he may have lost his last bargaining chip, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. For me, similar to the last issue, I felt like the strength here was in sort of the basic plot device that we have. Really, I think Wade is weaving a pretty interesting tale of Murdoch sort of trying to get through this strange point in his life, trying to wheel and deal his way through things.
Yeah, his struggle trying to out-negotiate Kingpin.
Fisk.
Yeah, which is a big deal because that's what he does. That's why he's so powerful, because he's an amazing negotiator.
Right. Yeah, we really see Murdoch struggling here to sort of keep up, which I always feel like Daredevil's best when he's struggling. That's when he's the most interesting, and so
Takes a challenge to bring out the best in a man.
Yeah, well, I thought this was a good sort of return to form for Daredevil from Wade, as he sort of explored a lot of different angles with his character. I feel like this is sort of him bringing the series back around to what we know Daredevil to be, which is sort of a struggling, bordering on failure sort of character.
Always bordering on failure, yeah. And that's what you love about him, and that's what you really root for him for, is that he just has so many struggles in his life constantly, and you want him to come out on top so bad. And that loving of the protagonist, oftentimes I feel with Daredevil, can overshadow your distaste for the antagonist, really. You just want him to win so bad, and it doesn't matter who he's going up against or anything like that. It's just he's your guy. He's your guy.
Yeah, he's the everyman in a way.
He's your favorite sports team. And it doesn't matter if they ever win a game again. They're your team.
Yeah, so from a writing perspective, I really enjoyed this issue. I liked what Wade's doing here. I'm excited now to see how this all wraps up.
What'd you think of the artwork?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same. I'm still kind of in the boat where I feel like we've been spoiled with such amazing Daredevil artwork for so many years that this isn't quite hitting on that same level. So it still like disappoints me a little bit when I read through it and look at this work, even though this is pretty good art.
It is. I wouldn't say it's spectacular by any means. Not up to the Daredevil standard, so to speak. But I do think it serves the purpose well. It moves things along. Sometimes it's cool in its minimalism. I think I've grown to appreciate minimalism in artwork a little bit more.
All right, well, so next we have Escape from New York, number 8. This is a new series for us on this show. This is our first issue with this. And this is written by Sabella with art by Barreto and Luis.
So this issue is actually the last in the second arc for the series. The first one, he was trying to escape from Florida, and in this one, he was trying to escape from Siberia. This issue specifically, we see him, again, continuing to try to escape Siberia, and in this issue, a cult with his apocalyptic scientist, half-captive sort of bro that he's been running around with.
I'll say right off the bat that this is my first issue with this. I am not up to date on it. I'm jumping in right here at the end of this. And in that regards, I will say this is not a good jumping on point. That being said, the writing in here is really good. And I feel like I would really enjoy this if I went back and read the rest of it. And it's got me excited for the next arc.
It's tricky coming in on the exact last issue of a story arc, with any series. I think if you felt perfectly at home, it would be sort of a detrimental statement to the writing prowess of Mr. Sabella here. But I'm glad that you enjoyed it still. I think it was still a very enjoyable read, sort of set aside from everything else in the arc. So one of my favorite things about this issue was just how funny it was. It was hilarious. So, funny moments. Let's go.
Well, for me, like, I think probably a lot of the humor is lost because I don't have any of the backstory on like leading up to this. So any of the inside jokes and that sort of thing, I'm lost on. I felt like there was a lot of that. Off the top of my head, the only thing that I really laughed out loud about was something that we saw in the previews with the cigarette that he keeps smoking, and they keep telling him to put it out. And that really did make me laugh, even though it was the second time I've read it, because it was in the preview page. So that's a good testament to the writing here.
Yeah, it was great. I think when we did our Polish review thing, we decided that his cigarettes were likened to Indiana Jones and his hat.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's definitely a good illustration of that. You know, take your hat off. Just act like you don't hear it. Whatever.
So what else was there? What did I miss?
For me, I think a lot of the funny parts were just his interaction with the scientist fellow. We really see this character sort of come together in this arc. He's new. I mean, he's not, somebody that's been in the series since the beginning by any means. But it's just funny because they both hate everything, but they're both really particular about the way that they hate everything. I thought it was really funny when Snake fries the guy's head, and then the scientist was like, "Man, I always wondered what that would look like, or I always wanted to see what that would look like," I think is what he said. Like, he had ambition to see it at some point. Nope, there it was. All right, cool.
That was funny. I now that you mention it, art-wise here, I'm sort of split down the middle on my feeling about the art with this book.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the look of it, but I have that complaint that I sometimes have with comics where I have trouble distinguishing who is who because everybody seems to be wearing the same thing throughout the series or throughout this book.
Well, given it's we have a cult and we have a military troop and then other people in the military. So everybody is pretty much dressed the same except for Snake and the scientist. Given, that this is your first issue and they're not going through explaining who everybody is, I could definitely see that criticism. But I think the art in general does a pretty good job of encapsulating the feel of cartoony but manly is maybe how I would describe it. Because there are things about it that are very light, but it's hard in the way that it's light.
Yeah, like an 80s action film. And I agree, it's got a cool look to it, but that's just a complaint that really bothers me. I understand that everybody's in the same outfit, but that's the artist's fault. The artist drew it that way. You can make a cult and still have everybody sort of stand out by giving them recognizable features, and that just doesn't happen in here.
I think it may have taken away from something if they did, though, because you're supposed to see the cult as like one thing, and then the people in the military are pretty much one thing, and there's a couple of them that stand out. Like the Spike guy does stand out, and then the leader of the group stands out, I think just because she's a woman, really. So those are really like the key people.
Sure, but I even, obviously the guy with the spikes, he stood out, but everybody else throughout that whole sequence, I had to read a couple times through each panel to figure out who was speaking to who. Even Pliskin and Ivan and that lead character, the lady in charge, King. I would confuse all three of them with each other. So that's just a complaint that I generally have a lot of times with comics. But otherwise, the art was pretty cool looking. All right, well that'll bring us to Thors #2. It's this right here. This is by Jason Aaron is doing the writing on this. We have Sprouse and Suzuka doing the penciling, Story and Vines doing the ink, and Garcia doing the coloring. So there's 5 people on the art here, which right away, I'd like to say the art's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
It's got a real Ultimates vibe to it. if anybody's just curious what it looks like in general. But man, it's got just a real stoic, sort of tough look to it. That's clean, but it has a lot of
colors,
a lot of weight.
Yeah, shadows in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of shadows in general. I think probably one of the artist's jobs was to go in and play up all the shadows.
That's probably why there's 5 of them. One of them was just on shadow duty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. There's even tons of shadowing, like on the actual cover.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. So overall, just to throw it out there, the art is cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably worth picking this up in my mind, just for the art. If you're into Thor, because there's like a bajillion Thors in here, and they're all portrayed really cool.
I'm not super into Thor as a whole, so I don't know that I would personally go out and pick it up. But yeah, I could see somebody that was a Thor fan taking out some of these pages and sticking
it's just cool to see the different Thors sort of played against each other with the art. The way it's so heavy, like the weight of Thor really shows off in here. You really feel the power of that character and the way the art's portrayed.
So in the wake of Beta Ray Bill's death, we see the Thors go out and first try to get vengeance and drink to doing so, and then they also keep going after Jane Foster. So to contrast the sort of heaviness of the art style, right out of the gate, we get a good laugh when one of the Thors is just lamenting about his job, and he says, "The longer you work this job, the more it feels like all you ever do is sit at a desk, fill out scrolls, and go to funerals." Yeah.
There's a lot of good sort of mythology meets cop drama jokes in here that are played really dry. That's a lot of fun right off the bat.
It's fantastic, and it really makes it clear what the tone of the series is meant to be. Mm-hmm. I think in that aspect lets a lot of the humor be like parody of itself almost. Mm-hmm. Like, it is funny because this is the setup that we have, but it's only funny because that's the setup that we have.
Right. Within context of the world, it all just makes sense, and there's no humor to the statement.
Right.
It's only from the third person perspective of it, from above looking down, that it's humorous. So this is Jason Aaron, and we've been loving a lot of the Jason Aaron stuff that we've read. Mm-hmm. How do you think this sort of fits within the Jason Aaron current pantheon?
Yeah, his mythos. One of the titles that I've been reading that we haven't been reading is Southern Bastards, and in that one we see a lot of the same thing where the humor is only from a third person sort of thing. All the characters they say everything with a lot of conviction. And that one gets pretty dark. I would say that this one is definitely not as dark as that comic. That comic's pretty messed up, but I can definitely feel the Jason Aaron in both of them. So that's the likeness that I kind of draw from that.
Yeah, I would say from all the Jason Aaron I've read, I think the through thread is the stoicism. Mm. There's always a certain stoic nature to his characters that has, again, sort of that weight. The same weight that we see in the art, I think we feel in the writing, where although it's humorous from our perspective, but from their perspective, from the perspective of the characters, there's a lot of weight to everything they say.
Definitely.
So I think that's really where we see Aaron shining through here, and kind of that through thread with the other stuff that he does. I think it's got a lot of interesting ideas happening in here, and I'm pretty excited to keep reading it.
Yeah, I've been loving this. Again, I was apprehensive about picking it up, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, well then that'll bring us to the last book of this week. This is another new title that we're just starting this month. That is Batgirl, number 42. This is written by Stewart and Fletcher with art by Tar and colors by LaPointe. So just kind of run us through real quick what's happening here.
Wait, so what does LaPointe do?
Color.
Okay, so the coloring is on LaPointe.
Yes.
Bam. So in this, we see Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, face conflict with the villainous Livewire, and also some legal/moral trouble with her father, Jim Gordon, also known as Mecha Batman.
I would actually say that Livewire, although she's on the cover and she's theoretically the antagonist of this issue, is really a very minor character within this issue.
I think it's really just a device to further the dialogue with her father.
Right. The thrust of this whole thing is Jim Gordon, Barbara Gordon. She knows he's Batman. He doesn't know she's Batgirl, and how that interplay works between them. So, first of all, what did you think of that? What do you think of the writing here?
I think it was pretty heavy given the tone of everything else that's happening. And this comic confuses me a lot in that regard because it seems like it's kind of covering two gamuts. Like on one side, we see stuff that's very Disney Channel cartoon-esque. And on the other side, you know, again, we have these very challenging issues. And it seems sort of heavily seated in both. Which is not a combination. It's not a combination.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a really interesting dichotomy to go from sort of, she must be, what, early college age, late high school, somewhere in there?
Early 20s somewhere.
And this very, it's very much a feel of like a young woman in her 20s with her friends and conversations about, you know, boyfriends and things. And then we then transition back and forth from that into this sort of weighty, dark, sort of Batman-oriented world with these weighty issues of her father and how do you deal with the fact that he doesn't know who she is and he wants to take her in, but he doesn't want to. And for me, it was a really cool dichotomy. I liked it quite a bit, and I felt like it was
interesting.
It was played well here, I thought.
Yeah. I haven't really seen anybody else attempt that, so it's a noble pursuit, I would say.
I agree. It's definitely an interesting addition to the Bat universe. You know, this character.
It also caught me a little bit off guard just how, when she's as herself as Barbara Gordon, the conversations that they have about superheroing and whatnot are just so light and fun and casual. Like, you know, I'm going to be out there by your side, you know, and then real shit happens sometimes. It's interesting.
I thought it was cool.
The artwork, I would say, also plays into the ABC Family Disney Channel cartoon kind of vibe. I definitely got that from this.
I really dug the art too here.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said, you know, it's that weird sort of modern American but quasi anime in ways. Like sometimes people have giant eyes and a tiny mouth, or the opposite.
Yeah, it definitely has an anime feel to the artistic side of it, and in that regard, I love the facial expressions in here. I feel like you get a lot of emotional context from the facial expressions, especially with Barbara.
Yeah.
Like, they really focus on making her really expressive and fun to examine. You know, it adds a lot to each panel and scene to see how she's reacting just with her body language and her facial expressions.
For sure.
And that goes on to the body language as well. I feel like
it's very expressive artwork.
This artist is killing body language. You know, I really get a lot of the story out of the body language from the characters, which is easier said than done.
Yeah, I think the new Mark Waid Archie was another one that we thought did the same thing.
It feels very similar to that, actually.
Yeah.
This does remind me of Fiona Staples' work on Archie, yes.
I think you'd probably draw more comparisons than that between the Mark Waid Archie and this. I think that's a good likening thing. If you like one, you'll probably like the other.
Yeah, I think so as well. Finally, the coloring. I'd like to mention that the coloring reminds me a lot of the Detective Comics stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the same color choices with the purples and pinks and more vibrant colors that I'm really liking.
We already said it's on La Pointe, so what else do you need to know?
It is. It's not just a funny pun.
Yeah.
It's accurate.
There's a lot of good work with like the dark palette as well too. I know the bright colors and the pinks and stuff like that are always the most exciting ones and the ones that catch you most by surprise. But there's something to be said for the dark palette that weights everything down in certain panels.
It makes those other colors pop.
Exactly.
And there's also a lot to be said about how the coloring really mimics the feel of the two dichotomies.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is that when things are light and playful, you know, things are, you know, light orange and, you know, pinks and purples and whatnot. And when things get serious, we almost see like that classic Batman palette where things are just very dark and stern, and there aren't a lot of facial expressions. You know, maybe hers, because she's supposed to still be this sort of doughy-eyed character, but everybody else is pretty stern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, overall, I like this.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our pull list review for the week. You can check back with us on Monday, where we're finally going to have out our bargain bin, Dennis O'Neill's The Question series. We'll talk about what we like about that one and why you should check it out.
Mostly just what we like about that one.
Mostly what we like about it, because there's a lot to like about that one.
Mm-hmm.
And check back with us next Wednesday night, Thursday morning for another episode of the Pull List Review. And the following weekend, we will go over our entire month. So check back for that as well.